Hello, my darling, and welcome to TUPS Vault. TUPS Vault is our book club. That's the name of our book club, and it's called TUPS Vault because it's a vault of knowledge, books, white papers, articles, and just us becoming more informed and disgustingly educated, disgustingly knowledgeable, disgustingly informed. And so it's called TUPS Vault. And when you listen to TUPS Vault, you are inside the vault. And we've closed the vault doors now. I'm recording this on Zoom on my laptop because I want it to be much more informal and for it to be just really intimate, just you and me. And I have my cup of tea here. And it's just me and you reading and understanding and dissecting books together. Okay. This month, that is the month of September 2025, we are reading Indra Nooyi's My Life in Full. Let's get it out. Here it is. That is Indra Nooyi's autobiography falling off of my shelf. I wondered if I could pull it out of the shelf because my camera's reversed and you know, it doesn't matter. We have got our book here. This is My Life in Full by Indra Nooyi. It is her autobiography. What is the difference between a biography and an autobiography? And if this is a bit pedestrian for you, just pardon us for a second. A biography is a story of someone's life written by someone else, whilst an autobiography is the story of a person's life written by that person. Now, My Life in Full by Indra Nooyi is written by her. She wrote this book. And I do tend to prefer autobiographies over biographies just because I really do want to hear from the person. And let's read the blurb. With candor and humor, Nooyi has written a wonderful book that brings her story to life. From her early years in India, surrounded by love and high expectations, to her determined efforts to succeed in the corporate world, all the while questioning the trade-offs she had to make. She reveals just how our society continues to sacrifice talent instead of changing how we organize work to maximize everyone's potential to live full and productive lives. A must read for working women and the men who work with us, love us, and support us. That's my favorite blurb of this book, by the way. The blurb that was written by Hillary Clinton herself. Let's get into it. Now, I don't know how much of this book you've read so far. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can stop being blind. I look like a nerd, but that's okay. I don't know how much of the book you've read so far at this point. I'm recording this on the 18th of September. Now, I don't know how much of it you've read, but TUPS Vault Part 1 is about the first chapter of My Life in Full. Now, I want us to really unlock the DNA of this book and why she wrote the book. Now, of course, naturally, I read it and I pull out that it's essentially a masterclass on how systems and people and knowledge have come together to make the great Indra Nooyi who she became in her later life. But part 1 really speaks about Indra Nooyi's childhood, her mother, and the people who made her who she is. I have some notes and we're going to go over our notes together. I want you to think of this episode as your espresso shot of governance, habits, and ambition. And of course, I'm referring to espresso and coffee because I'm a coffee addict, but I'm working on it. Okay. Now, a little snippet from chapter 1. Indra says, when I was 6, my sister Chandrika and I were assigned daily chores. The most relentless began at dawn, when, on many days, one of us climbed out of our shared bed at the first sound of a grunting, bowling water buffalo at the front door. A local woman would arrive with a big grey animal, and milk her for the day's supply. Our job was to make sure she didn't bulk up the milk by adding water. My mother, who I call Amma, used that buffalo milk for the yogurt, the butter, and the delicious aromatic South Indian coffee that were staples of our vegetarian diet. This is just a little snippet of Indra Nooyi talking to us about what her childhood was like. And I find it so wholesome because I think I can pull a few similarities between that and my childhood. I was born in northern Nigeria in a state called Kano State. And now, whilst there were no water buffaloes in my childhood, I know that our morning chores were very much, fetching water, taking a shower, getting ready for school. And it was very handy. And there were not a lot of automated chores in my childhood. So if you are here, that means that you would like to step into Indra Nooyi's life with me. She is one of the most formidable problem solvers of our era. And whilst reading her autobiography, I've learned so many lessons from just chapter one alone, and I knew I had to bring it into the vault. For the next 20 minutes, we will talk about three things that she teaches us. Almost accidentally, the power of systems, the influence of people, and the compounding return of knowledge. And along the way, I will pull in a few other books and even share how these lessons have played out in my life. So let's get into the vault. So in chapter one, we learn that Indra grew up in Madras in India in a very traditional household. Her mother was a force. And I love that because the power of a mother in a home can never be understated. I say to you very often that I believe that the family is the most important institution in society. The family is the most important institution in society. I live and die by this. Indra had a mother who was a force, a powerhouse. Every evening, she would ask Indra and her sister Chandrika to dream out loud. She would say, imagine you could be anything. What would it be? And Indra remembers how her mother would even assign roles at the dinner table. One daughter would pretend to be the prime minister, and another would pretend to be a CEO or another leader of some sort. Now, let's pause here for a second. This is not just any odd working class family, okay? I think that's something that tends to happen in families of lower income is that we get so caught up in the fact that there is no money in the home or that there is little money in the home, and we forget that money isn't the only tool that makes a person successful. In fact, for the most part, money is a sign that someone has become successful. Money is rarely the tool that gets you there. We need systems. And in this case, systems can be habits or routines that you might find boring or cringe. But over time, when they're compounded, can really significantly change a person's life, like we see here in the life of Indra. In TUPS Formula, S is for, you got it, systems. And her mother had one. It was a simple ritual. It was repeated daily, a prompt to think bigger. Now, James Clear says something in Atomic Habits, which is another one that I have, and I will not attempt to pull to pull it out like I did in the other book. Okay, we'll find Atomic Habits later, but Mr. Clare says something in Atomic Habits. Habits are a compound interest of self-improvement. Habits are a compound interest of self-improvement. In other words, just as money grows when you invest it and leave it alone, your habits grow when you repeat them daily. We start to understand why it is so important that Indra and Chandrika would think out loud every evening before bed and say, if I could be anything, what would I be? The possibilities are limitless. Now, you might say to yourself, they are a working class family in India. The possibilities are absolutely not limitless. They are, actually. They are. The possibilities of what Indra could have been limitless with a mum like that and the habits that we start to see her form. She was unstoppable. Only she could have stopped herself. Indra's family dinner was her compound interest. Night after night, she was practicing imagination, practicing ambition, and these things require practicing. Why do I say that? In The Power of Habits by Charles Dewing, I think I'm saying his name right. I think it's Charles Dewing. In The Power of Habits by Charles Dewing, Charles explains this beautifully. He talks about how he talks about the habit loop. I think that's what he calls it. He calls it the habit loop. It's cue, routine, reward, cue, routine, reward, cue, routine, reward. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking about systems. And in our personal lives, systems can show up and appear as habits or routines. So, cue, routine, reward. The cue here was dinner. The routine was dreaming out loud. And what was the reward? The reward was the feeling of possibility. If you are listening to this, I want you to start practicing this. I want you to start practicing your ambition, start practicing your imagination. I want you to live out the life that you want in your head first. Live it out in your head. I am inviting you to step into your mind where there are no barriers and live out the life you want, the career you want, the business that you want to build. Live it out in your head first. Here's the thing. You don't need a complex system in order to be great. Systems are not always big dashboards and big apps and etc. They can be at corporate level, certainly they can be. Even in your personal lives, they can be. I have a husband who certainly is a spreadsheets guy. He's certainly a spreadsheet guy. He's definitely a dashboards guy, and that's great. But it doesn't always have to be that. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be as simple as at dinner, we dream out loud. Sometimes you just need rituals that will force you to show up consistently. And that's what Indra's mom forced them to do, forced them to have. For me, in the journey of building Emboldened, which is our neurodiverse tech company, I had one ritual. Every morning, I would open my inbox. I would write down three of the biggest blockers I need to solve on that day, be that from people trying to, garner the right attention, be that the attention of the Dyslexic Association, the British Dyslexic Association, trying to find the right people to talk to. Who are the gatekeepers? Who can I go through to say, hey, this is Emboldened and our flagship product is free. Please try it. I'd love to talk to somebody about it. Whatever the blockers were, every morning I would just write down three different blockers that I'm experiencing. And I would just focus on those three things. That morning, that was it. I'm just focusing on these three things. Or be that a bug that we need to fix. And I have a conversation or I have a meeting with Benedictus and I say, okay, we have a bug. We need to fix this bug. Fun fact, psychologists call this the commitment device. It's when you lock yourself into a small repeated action that forces follow through. Small, repeated over time, compounding, 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 small, repeated over time. So here's the takeaway regarding systems. Systems don't care if you are Indra Nooyi or if you're a student, you're just starting out. The law of compounding reward will work for whoever is willing to build the system, for whoever is willing to build the routine, the habits. So if you are willing to build it, it will work for you. Now let's talk about people in Indra's life. The P in TUPS is people. I gave it away already, didn't I? Okay, so Indra's family wasn't just any other household like we have already established. Her family was like her first ever governance board. Her mother was the chairwoman, and what an incredible chairwoman she was. Her sister was a healthy competitor, and we're going to get to this, and we're going to get to this, the power of having healthy competition and how in the P of TUPS, competition is an important factor for our success as people, as organization, as boards. The whole environment she had growing up was a crucible of debate and vision. And it's very, very important that children have this sort of environment when they're growing up. Those of you who follow me on Instagram know that I talk about how I'm going to teach my children chess. It is very, very important. My husband taught me chess, and I'm going to teach my children chess. I believe very strongly that children should grow up in an environment that challenges them mentally. It gives them an opportunity to stretch their brain, healthy competition, a little bit of debating on topics over the dinner table. What do you think about this? Why do you think this? How have you come to this conclusion? To stretch their imagination and to give them a chance to go back and forth on topics that either both grand topics and things as little as peas. Why don't you like peas? What are your thoughts on peas? Why don't you like them? Okay, can you give us a logical explanation of why you don't like peas? Why peas over broccoli? What is it about broccoli? I want you to be able to articulate yourself. Oh, peas are too squishy, or broccoli can have a bit of crunch in it, depending on how you make it. And the crunch keeps the broccoli exciting, while the peas, they're small and it doesn't hold my attention for long. Something, I don't care. Give little Jack or little James the opportunity to expand on his thoughts about the difference between broccoli and peas. I think that that's how to raise um, intelligent, competent children. She says, not being a mum at all and not having raised children. But I have read and I've watched and I've seen, and I have a friend who is a brilliant doctor who is also obsessed with the education system. And also, she's a doctor and a lecturer now. I have the most brilliant, most amazing friends, and I love her so much. She is a medical doctor and she's a teacher and she's obsessed with the education system. So we find ourselves having these conversations about how do we raise our own children? How are we going to raise our own children and make sure that these are competent, intellectual, thinking kids, especially in a world of iPad kids? Especially in a world of iPad kids. Why does this matter? Now, Harvard Business Review has published several pieces showing that boards who challenge one another, who actually have healthy debates, outperform boards who just nod along and agree with each other. Why? Because it's healthy friction. Healthy friction brings about better decision making. And recently, we took a vote on one of the boards I sit on, and I was on the losing side of that vote. On the way back home in the car, as you guys know, I choose not to drive. I prefer to be driven around, and I just like it gives me my time back. So I like to sit down at the back of the car. And so whilst I was sitting in the back of the car and the windows were rolled down, and I was just enjoying the beautiful summer breeze. Of course, it's fall now, and so the summer breeze is gone. I was just thinking about how important it is to sit on a board where you get outvoted from time to time, because being in a board where we have groupthink does not do the business any good. It doesn't do our shareholders and our stakeholders any good. Our stakeholders are expecting us as the board to have healthy disagreements with each other. This is why people matter, not just because they cheer for you, but because they also challenge you. I often think about the Igbo saying. I can't say it in Igbo, but the saying goes, a child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. I know. Don't worry. Think about it. Think about it later. But Indra's village embraced her. Okay, and that's why she set fire rather to the world rather than her own life. And this goes back to how our childhood and how we're raised impacts our later life and who we become, what sort of problem solvers we become, or what sort of problems we become. The political climate show us that people become terribly problematic and we are experiencing how problematic people are. And oftentimes it causes me to go back to who raised you? How were you raised? And this isn't me giving explicit blame to people's parents, because very often, or rather, I'll use myself as an example, there are many cheeky things I got up to in my teenage years. She sips her tea. That if someone had come up to me and gone, "Oh my God, who raised you?" I would be remiss if I didn't say to them, I was raised right. I was raised with discipline and respect and etiquette. And this is just a product of rebellion. So I'm not completely blaming people's parents, but I am certainly saying that the way that we are raised plays a massive role in who we become. I'm going to bring this even closer. In my journey, I can tell you plainly that I'm not a one woman empire. The people I keep close matter to me. My husband, who is the champion of my world, he is barring Jesus. He is my system thinker. He thinks in systems. He's sharper. He's sharper than I am, which is a testament to my great decision making, because I married someone who is sharper than I am. Because who the heck else was I going to marry other than someone who was smarter and sharper than me? I mean, come on now. He balances me out very, very well. My mentors, I have such brilliant, fantastic mentors, and I just want to give a shout out to one of my mentors, Dame Morenica Ajayi, who I met a few months after I lost my mom. And I think that that was just God just sliding in someone nicely into my life. And she is incredible. And even my friends are very principled people. We have come together under a banner of principle. Whilst we have different ambitions, different careers, and different personalities, the thing that holds us all together is principle. And we are certainly ruled and governed by the Bible. In my personal life, we are ruled and governed by the Bible. And so I have intentionally curated a world and an environment for my own success. People matter. The people around you certainly matter. Don't, if you have ever said to yourself, "Oh, it doesn't matter who my friends are, really. I'm just going to make it. I'm going to be an it girl. I'm going to be whatever, whatever." All of the other many super exciting 2025 terms there are out there. I want to tell you that you are wrong. People absolutely matter. Your friends, your mentors, the relationships you have. Mrs. Ibukuna Washika said something once. She said that the man that a woman marries will greatly determine her success. Now, she wasn't saying that all women must marry, but she was saying certainly that for the women who do want to marry and will marry, the man you marry will greatly determine your success, how far you go, and how quickly you go far, and how much you even enjoy the journey. So without the right people, I would be playing a game of checkers with my life as opposed to chess. Checkers is so quick and so, boom, 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 boom. And chess is more long term and a lot of thinking, a lot of processing, and, putting the right pieces in play, putting the right pieces on the right parts of the board and just taking your time. And that's the sort of environment that I have. So ask yourself, who sits at your dinner table? Who is in your WhatsApp group? And do you need to leave that WhatsApp group? Personally, I'm an advocate of leaving WhatsApp groups. I am tired of WhatsApp groups. There are too many WhatsApp groups in the world. It's getting out of hand, guys. Let's just calm down. Let's all calm down. Because those conversations are either compounding your dreams or they are quietly shrinking your dreams. Now, finally, knowledge. Indra Nooyi is obsessed with education. We can tell just from the get go. Chapter one, she's obsessed with education. She's obsessed with gathering information and learning and asking questions. And she was the type of kid who was probably asking why, why. But then again, she has an Indian mom, so I'm not really sure how that would have panned out for her. If you are an Asian girl, an Indian girlie, if you're an Indian girl, please let me know how that would have worked out if you were a kid who was always asking why, why, why. Let me know how that would have worked out. I'm so curious because as someone who has and who had, unfortunately, had a Nigerian Igbo mom, after the third Y, you kind of start to get the sense that, question time is over. You know what I mean? So Indra Nooyi was obsessed with education. She didn't just want to be smart. She wanted mobility for herself. She wanted knowledge. And for her, knowledge was the ladder out of her present world. And this aligns very well with Baroness Dambisa Moyo, who is an incredible woman that I may or may not be slightly obsessed with. May or may not be slightly obsessed with. Guys, calm down. I'm not dangerous in the slightest. This aligns with Baroness Dambisa Moyo, who writes the book How Boards Work, which is one of my favorite books, and I have it here somewhere. She writes in this book that knowledge isn't just personal growth. Knowledge is sovereignty. Knowledge is sovereign. And I personally love the word, and I love the word sovereign partly because one of my favorite songs is Sovereign God by Maureen Brown Clark. Beautiful song, great music, great instrument play, wonderful, brilliant, brilliant. Side note, guys, I don't know if you know, but I play the keys. I don't play it at a professional level, but I do play the keyboard and I sing. So I love music. That was a side note and absolutely irrelevant to this conversation, but knowledge is, to me, the only real power you can carry with you across borders, across jobs, across crises that no one can really take away from you. And that's why the tagline for TUPS Vault is if you know, you know. Because if you know, you know. No one can take that away from you. Once you know, you know. Once you know, you know. Okay, I'm beating a dead horse. I'm flogging a dead horse here. But Tops Vault, if you know, you know. McKinsey once published a research showing that companies who embed lifelong learning into their culture certainly outperform their peers in both resilience and in innovation. The translation of this is that knowledge is not optional, it's needed for survival. The reason why companies embed knowledge and information and learning into their culture is because innovation is important to them. Therefore, knowledge fuels innovation. That should be common sense to us. You want to grow, you want to evolve. You need to know more, both about yourself and about the world around you. And that's why I tell you all the time, Corpy, read in and around your field. Read within your field, read around your field, read outside of your field, read about psychology, read about life, read about Socrates. I mean, as random as it gets, even better. Read and keep reading. And I guess that's why you are in the TUPS vault. For me, when I pivoted from law into tech, I wouldn't call it a massive pivot because I still am very much in the world of legal compliance and, regulation and policies, but stepping into tech, mainly the behind the scenes of tech, where I'm building a tech, a tech platform. Knowledge was the password I needed to get in. I read, I watched, I listened to other people who had built similar things. I listened to my husband, who was an engineer, and I asked as many questions as possible. And I keep asking questions. Anybody who knows me knows that I have a question on the tip of my tongue at any given moment. I have a question. I have a question, please, sir. I have a question. Can I ask a question? Always. I don't have an AI degree. I don't have a tech degree. There are such things as tech degrees, but I devoured white papers on the relationship between neurodiversity and SDGs. I devoured white papers on sustainability. I devoured white papers on IT tech frameworks. I read and read and read. I read about the world of technology, especially as it has to do with neurodiversity for ADHDs like myself and people who are dyslexic too. I read and read and read. In fact, Google Scholar hated seeing me come in because I was in there. That knowledge became my currency. And the mixture of the knowledge and then practically living it out and testing things out, It got me to where we are now, and I believe it's going to get us even further. It brought me credibility where I did not have any. So here's the metaphor I love. In chess, the pawn is the weakest piece, but if it just keeps moving one square at a time, it will become a queen. In chess, the pawn is the weakest piece, but if it keeps moving one square at a time, one square at a time, it can become a queen. So I don't know where you are right now in your learning journey, where you're like, I feel like people just know stuff and I don't know anything. When the pawn keeps moving one piece at a time, one square at a time, it will become a queen. So let's zoom out for a second. In just one chapter, Indra Nooyi shows us three pillars in TUPS: systems, people, knowledge. Her system was her mother's nightly ritual. The people around her, her family, her sister, they acted like a board. And she leaned into what they brought to her, and she leaned into the value that they added to her life. Her knowledge was her academic obsession. Do you notice how she had all of these things before Pepsi, before Yale, before the boardroom? Which means you don't have to wait for the big titles to practice TUPS. You don't have to wait for it. You don't have to wait for the big titles and the big opportunities for you to be a problem solver. Solve your own damn problems. This is why TUPS Vault exists, to remind you that every problem has a system, every dream needs people, and every career and business idea requires knowledge. Indra didn't stumble into success. She actually compounded it. Night after night at a dinner table, she would sit down and she would dream of lecture halls, and she would dream of boardrooms, of being a prime minister, of being a CEO, and she would just dream. And somehow having the system, which was a routine of practicing ambition, got her to where she ended up and to where she's going, because I certainly don't think she's done. So here's my challenge to you. Are you ready? This week, I want you to dream out loud. Every evening, I want you to either post on LinkedIn, post on Instagram, or on TikTok a dream, a vision, something that you want to be or something that you believe you will become. Tag me. Tag me. I want to be a part of your dream. I want to know. I want to know what your dream is. What do you want to be in this world? If you could be anything, what would you be? I'm asking you the question that Indra Nooyi's mum asked her. If you could be anything, what would you be? Because the only way to become the kind of problem solver who changes the game, who changes the world, is to build, compound, and repeat. That's TUPS. Systems, people, knowledge makes you the ultimate problem solver. And this is part one of TUPS Vault. Thank you for coming into the vault with me, and I will see you in part two. Remember that we are reading Indra Nooyi's My Life in Full. All my love, my darlings. See you soon.